Okay, so slope-intercept form, okay? We talked about slope-intercept form on the video. Sorry, wish I was here. Kenzie's healthy again, so it's all good. Slope-intercept form is this one. Y equals mx plus b, right? So a slope and a y-intercept. But now instead of being given a slope and an intercept, yes, ma'am? Are you okay? I am. So instead of being given those things, now you're going to be given 2 points. The good news is we can find a slope and we can find a y-intercept, but these problems are probably the trickiest problems that you're going to do with slope-intercept form, okay? So I really need you to focus on this. If something is distracting you on your iPad, stop it and hang out with me, okay? Excuse me. So these are the steps that you'll follow, and I'm just going to walk you through. First of all, notice it says write an equation in slope-intercept form, so y equals mx plus b, and it's going to pass through these 2 points. Do you know how to find a slope or a y-intercept if you've been given 2 points? You could graph them. We're not going to graph these. Do you remember the slope formula?
Like a y2.
Yes. So this one you're going to use m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's the slope formula. So we're going to start by finding the slope. Do you remember what I recommended you do with your points?
Write them over it.
Label them. Yep. So you have an x1 and a y1, and you have an x2 and a y2. Okay, so then we're just going to drop those numbers in. What goes on top here? Negative 8 minus 1. What goes on bottom? 5 minus 2. Could I have done 2 minus 5?
Yes, but then you would have to do 1 minus.
Right.
Negative.
So if you wanted to flip them all, then it would have to be that the first point was your x2, y2, and the second point was your x1, y1. You have to keep your 1's together, and you have to keep your 2's together. So you cannot do y2 minus y1 over x1 minus x2, right? You have to go in the same order. 2 minus 1, 2 minus 1, okay? So simplify this. Negative 8 minus 1 is a negative 9. 5 minus 2 is 3. Can you simplify that any further?
Yeah.
To what? Negative 3 over 1, which you can just call negative 3, okay? If it's over 1, you don't have to put the 1 there. So that's your slope. That's your m. Okay, now here is where it gets a little bit fancy, and you kind of have options. You can pick which one you like better. We are trying to put it into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And you are going to use the coordinates, use the slope and coordinates. There should be an and between slope and coordinates of one of the points. Okay, so you're going to use the slope, and you're going to use an x and a y. What is important here is that you may pick whichever x, y you want, but it has to be the same point, not an x from one and a y from another, okay? So I can either use 2, 1, or I can use 5, negative 8. I cannot use 2 and negative 8. Does that make sense? So pick 1 point. I think 2, 1 is better numbers to work with, okay? So now think of it this way. That is an x and a y. This is an m. So we're going to replace our x, our y, and our m. What's going to take the place of y?
3 and negative 3.
Not negative 3.
Y.
The y. What's the y?
1.
The 1, right. This is your y value. So you're going to say 1 equals, what's your m value? Negative 3. What's your x value? 2. What operation is happening between m and x? Multiplication. So negative 3 times 2 plus our b value. Okay, so I just dropped everything in, and now you can simplify so that we can find our y-intercept. So we can solve for b. So this is going to be 1 equals, what does this become? Negative 6 plus b. How do I solve for b? Yeah.
Why did you, sorry, I wasn't answering, but like, why are you using like the x1 and y1 instead of the x and y2?
You could use the x2, y2 also.
Oh.
You just can't mix the two. So if you did the x2, y2, you would say negative 8 equals negative 3 times the x value plus your b. So this would be negative 15 plus b equals negative 8. And then when you solve it, you would add 15, and that's 7 for your b value. But notice over here, if I add 6, that's also 7 as my b value. So it doesn't matter which one you use, you'll get the same b value.
Okay, so it doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, you can pick whichever one you like better. Okay, so here's what we have. They say, write the equation in slope-intercept form. When you write an equation in this form, you should have a number here and a number here, but the x and y should be x and y. So your final answer needs an x and a y in it, no other variables. So if I put an x and a y in and I substitute my slope and my y-intercept, I get what? Y equals negative 3x plus 7. Okay, so you're gonna solve for the slope and y-intercept, and then once you have them both, then you can drop them in and take out whatever x and y you were plugging in. That's the trickiest part. People forget to take the x and the y back out and put them in as x and y. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna do one more with you, and then I'm gonna have you try one on your own, because these are tough. These are tricky problems. Just not tough. There's a lot of steps to them, okay? So write an equation in slope-intercept form that represents the line that passes through these 2 points. What should we do first?
The formula y equals
y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So find the slope first, right? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's label our points. I'm going to call this x1, y1, and this x2, y2. If I called the 3x2, then what is 1? If I called this x2 instead, then this 1 would have to be what? y2, okay? So it does not matter which one's your x1 and which one's your x2. It matters that your 1s stay together and your 2s stay together, okay? Okay, so now plug this into the slope formula. What goes on top? Negative 2 minus 1. On bottom? 7 minus 3. So this is negative 3 over 4. Okay, that's your m. Do you remember what you have to do next? Y equals mx plus b. Which point do you want to work with? I would do this one. Are we good with that one? Okay, so we're going to say if it's y equals mx plus b, what is y? 1 equals negative 3/4 times 3, your x value, plus your b value.
How do you know? Are we gonna find b?
Yeah.
Only when we graph it.
We're not graphing it. We're just solving for the equation, right? So we want the equation that will represent the line no matter where we go on that line, no matter what x and y value we use, okay? So this becomes negative 9/4 plus b equals 1. What do you do? Add 9/4, right? So plus 9/4. Okay, so now here's the deal. 1 plus 9/4. Let's zoom in a little here. We're making a mess. Come back. 1 plus 9/4 is what number? What is 9/4? How about as a mixed number? What? 2 and 1/4. 4 times 4. That's 8. You have 1/4 left over, right? So it's 1 plus 2 1/4 is 3 and 1/4. I don't really care if you say, so that was this, right? That's our b value. You can call it 3 1/4, or you could call it 13/4. Okay, I don't really care. I think this probably is a little more visual for you, like where would that fall on a graph? But you can do either. Okay, so here's the part that people often forget to do. Now that you've found b, you have to write the equation of the line. What is the equation of this line? Right. So y equals the slope, negative 3/4 times x, plus the 3 1/4. That is your y-intercept. Does that make sense? Yes, Olivia.
Since it was a negative 9/4, it wouldn't be a negative 3/4.
You could call it right here a negative 3 1/4 and then say to get it to the other side, then you're adding 3 1/4. Sorry, it was 2 1/4. So a negative 2 1/4. So if you add 2 1/4 to this 1, that's 3 1/4.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to try this one on your own. It's the exact same type of problem, just different numbers. Figure out what would your slope be and how do you put that into slope-intercept form then. Go ahead. God bless you. Does anyone have an answer yet? Not quite? What'd you get, Olivia?
I got y equals 1/2 x minus 3 1/2.
Okay. Anybody else get that? We're not there yet. All right, let's take a look. Tell me what you did first. What? Did you label these? X1, Y1, X2, Y2? Okay, what'd you get for a slope? What? Not 5/2. Oh, the negative. The negative messed you up. Y2 minus Y1. So negative 3 minus a negative 2, that's plus a positive, right? And then 1 minus 3. So you get a negative 1 over a negative 2. What's negative 1 over a negative 2?
1/2.
Positive 1/2, right? A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So your slope should be 1/2. This is your M. Okay. Then you pick a point. Which point do you want to use? The first one? Okay, so if we use this point, lay it out for me. What's your first number you're going to write down? Negative 2 equals the slope times 3 plus your b value. And the b is what we're solving for, right? So we don't need a number there right now. We're going to solve for that number. 1/2 of 3. So you can call that 3/2. You can call it 1.5. Either way. So you're going to subtract 3/2 or subtract 1.5. So negative 2 minus 1.5 puts you with a b value of negative 3.5. Okay, so you found your m, you found your b. The equation of your line then is y equals m, which is 1/2, times x plus a negative 3.5 or minus 3.5. So this is your final answer. Did you get that? So?
I did the right thing, but I just like, I kind of got the slope down.
Did you miss the negative?
Yeah.
Or did you do negative 1 over negative 2?
No,
You got a different number. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just take your time with those. And your calculator, I mean, use your calculator. It will tell you negative 3 minus a negative 2, negative 1. 1 minus 3, negative 2. Okay, then it's graphing. And there's a lot of these. We're not necessarily going to do all of them, but I just want you to see what's going on here. So when you graph, okay, you find the slope and y-intercept. You always plot the y-intercept first, and then you use your slope to find the next point, okay? So hear me on that. Never start with slope. You will always start with y-intercept, okay? So in this setup, this is your slope of 2. This is your y-intercept. What is a y-intercept? What does that mean? Where it crosses the y-axis, and your y-axis is this one. So right now this is saying we're crossing the y-axis at negative 1. Where do you move for negative 1?
Down.
From where?
from From the middle.
From 0, 0, okay? From the origin, you're gonna move down 1. So you're gonna put a y-intercept right there. Can you tell me where you move for a slope of 2?
Up to over.
2 is always treat it like a fraction, right? Up 2 to the right 1. So you're gonna go up to right 1. I always like to do it a couple times just because I like a nice straight line. So you can do it as many times as you want. Technically, you only need 2 points to be able to make a line. But then make sure you draw a line in, okay? Don't just leave it as points. Draw that line in, and that would be your graph. So what's different about this one? This is 3x minus 1. Where do you go first? -1. You're going to go down 1. And now where? Up 3 to the right 1, right? So it's up 3 to the right 1, up 3 to the right 1, and you get this graph. Okay, so it's a steeper slope now, right? 3 versus 2, just got a little sharper. C looks a little bit different. Can anyone tell me what we treat differently here? What do we know?
You know the slope is 1 over 2.
We know the slope. Whatever comes in front of your x is always the slope. What's your y-intercept? 0. It's like we said plus 0 at the end of that, right? So if there's nothing there, your y-intercept is 0, okay? So we would put a y-intercept at the origin, and where do you move from there?
Up 1 over 2.
Up 1 to the right 2, up 1 to the right 2, up 1 to the right 2. So your line looks like that. Okay, so if there's nothing behind it, that's a y-intercept of 0, okay? All right, tell me where you're gonna move on D. Up 2 first, okay? Up 2 is gonna be this y-intercept. Where do you move from there?
Down to
Over to what side? To the right. You always move to the right, okay? Keep the negative with the top number and then always move right. So if it's -2, down 2, 1, 2, 3 to the right. Down 2, 3 to the right. You can always check this. If your slope is negative, it should be going down, right? These all had a positive slope, positive, positive, positive. Those were all working left to right, going up. This is a negative slope, and it's going down, okay? If it doesn't go down, you did something wrong. So check that when you're graphing. So this one should go up or down from left to right. Letter E.
down.
It should go down. It's a negative slope, okay? Where do you move first on this one? Up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to go down 3, but over 1. Remember, treat it like a fraction. So down 3, 1, 2, 3 to the right 1. Down 3 to the right 1. You get this graph. Questions on that? Okay, I'm going to change this question because I'm going to give you one that's a little bit more like something I'm going to ask you on the quiz. What if I said y plus 1 equals -2x plus 4? And I said graph that in slope-intercept form. Do you see the issue right now? Not solve it, but you have to put it into slope-intercept. Yes. Okay, so how do I put this into slope-intercept form? Right, subtract the 1, so we get y equals mx plus b. You have to do whatever it takes to get to y equals mx plus b, right? So this would be y equals -2x plus 3. So here's your 3. Go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. So it'll look like that. Okay. Okay, last two. These should feel very similar, very familiar because we've done stuff like this, but now we're gonna be able to do it without needing to make a table of values like we did in the past, right? We don't have to plug in numbers for X and Y. We can graph it because we know how to graph a line in slope-intercept form now. So this is kind of lovely. take a look at this example 3. It says a plumber charges a $65 fee for a repair plus $35 per hour. Write an equation to model the total cost, Y. Okay, so cost is Y for X hours. Okay, anyone tell me what that equation will look like? Y equals
35x plus 65.
Oops, 35x plus the $65 fee. Okay, $35 per hour. Remember, per means you're multiplying by the number of hours, right? So it looks like this. Okay, what is the slope of this line? It's 35. This is the slope, okay? What's the y-intercept? 65. So here's what I recommend. I think if we're going, well, first of all, what variable is on the bottom? It's your x, it's your hours, right? This is your cost. In my head, the thing that makes the most sense is to count on your y by your slope, right? This is saying go up 35 and over 1. So if I count by 35s here, that's great. However, if I count by 35s, but I don't get to a 65, that's weird. So what you could do on these, hours are just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? But then your cost, I would probably, this is maybe, I don't know, simplifying it a little too much. I would probably do the zigzag and just say, I'm not going to count by 35s yet. I'm going to start at my y-intercept of 65. And now I'm going to count by 35. Does that make sense? Because you're going to fall nicely on all the crossbars then. You don't have to do it this way. I just think it simplifies it. So what's 35 more than 65? 100. And then 35 more is 135. And then 35 more is 170. And then 205. And then 240. So you just keep counting by your slope. So here's the deal. If I'm in a graph, slope-intercept form, I'm going to plot my y-intercept at 65. And then my slope is up 35 over 1, right? So I'm going to go up 35 over 1, up 35 over 1, up 35 over 1. So I end up with this lovely line like that. Okay? You don't have to do it that way. You could absolutely do it this way. I'm going to show you a different way you could have done it. You don't need to rewrite this, okay? Here's the other way you could have done this problem. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could have done it. I'm going to erase this and show you another option. Let's say I want, let's see. I'm going to count by 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, okay? If I do this, then my y-intercept at 65 is going to be about here. Now you just have to do a little bit of the math in your head, right? If I'm going up 35, I'm at 65, so I would end up at 100 over 1, then 135 over 1. So you could have gotten a graph that looks like that too. It's all about what you use here. Okay, so use what makes the most sense to you. Your graph might look different than mine, but as long as it's counting by the same amount each time, it's okay. Okay. Okay, last one. Water pressure can be measured. Oh, I forgot to add this in. Shoot. You know what? We're not going to do it. We could be done. It was just another problem.